In the name of God, the Almighty, the Merciful. They ask thee about the spoils of war. Say thou, the spoils of war are for God and the messenger. So be in prudent fear of God, and make right in what is between you, and obey God and his messenger, if you be believers. The believers are but those who, when God is remembered, their hearts are afraid, and when his proofs are recited to them, it increases them in faith, and in their Lord they place their trust, those who uphold the duty, and of what we have provided them they spend. It is they who are the believers in truth. They have degrees with their Lord, and forgiveness, and a noble provision, like as thy Lord brought thee forth from thy house in truth. And a faction among the believers was averse, disputing with thee concerning the truth after it had become clear, as if they were being driven to death when they were looking on. And when God promised you one of the two groups that it would be yours, and you wished that the unarmed one might be yours, but God willed to establish the truth by his words, and to cut off the root of the false claimers of guidance, that he might establish the truth and bring vanity to nothing, though the lawbreakers were averse. When you sought succour of your Lord, and he responded to you, I will assist you with 1,000 angels in ranks. And God made it only as glad tidings, and that your hearts might find rest thereby. And there is no help save from God. God is exalted in might and wise. When he made slumber overcome you as security from him, and sent down upon you water from the sky, that he might purify you thereby, and to remove from you the scourge of the Satan, and to fortify your hearts, and make firm thereby your feet. When thy Lord instructed the angels, I am with you, so make firm those who heed warning. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who ignore warning. So strike above the necks, and strike from them every fingertip. Is it not that they made a breach with God and his messenger? And whoso makes a breach with God and his messenger, God is severe in retribution. That, taste it. And that for the false claimers of guidance is the punishment of the fire. O you who heed warning, when you meet those who ignore warning advancing, turn not your backs to them. And whoso that day turns his back to them, save as a maneuver for battle or joining a company, he has incurred wrath from God, and his shelter is Gehenna, and evil is the journey's end. And you killed them not, but God killed them. And thou threwest not when thou didst throw, but God threw. And that he might test the believers by a fair trial from him, he required you to fight. God is hearing and knowing. That, taste it. And because God makes weak the plan of the false claimers of guidance. If you seek decision, the decision has come to you. And if you cease, it is better for you. But if you return, we will return, and your company will avail you nothing, though it be numerous. And that God is with the believers. O you who heed warning, obey God and his messenger, and turn not away from him when you hear. And be not as those who say, We have heard, and they hear not. The worst of beasts in the sight of God are the deaf, the dumb, those who do not reason. And had God known any good in them, he would have made them hear. And had he made them hear, they would have turned away. And they are averse. O you who heed warning, respond to God and the messenger when he calls you to what gives you life, and know that God stands between a man and his heart, and that to him you will be gathered. And be in prudent fear of a means of denial, not to befall those who do wrong among you exclusively, and know that God is severe in retribution. And remember when you were few and oppressed in the land, fearing that the people would snatch you away, but he gave you refuge and strengthened you with his help, and provided you with good things, that you might be grateful. O you who heed warning, betray not God and his messenger, or betray your trusts when you know. And know that your wealth and your children are but a means of denial, and that with God is a great reward. O you who heed warning, if you be in prudent fear of God, he will make for you a division, and remove from you your evil deeds, and forgive you. And God is possessor of tremendous bounty. And when those who ignore warning schemed against thee to restrain thee, or to kill thee, or to drive thee out, and they scheme, and God schemes, and God is the best of schemers. And when our proofs are recited to them, they say, We have heard. If we wished we could speak the like of this. This is only legends of the former peoples. And when they say, O God, if this be the truth from thee, then rain thou down upon us stones from the sky, or bring thou us a painful punishment. But God would not punish them when thou art among them, and God would not punish them as they sought forgiveness. But how can they not be punished by God when they turn away from the inviolable place of worship and are not its allies? Its allies are only those of prudent fear, but most of them know not. And their duty at the house is only whistling and clapping. So taste the punishment for what you denied. Those who ignore warning spend their wealth on turning away from the path of God. So will they spend it. Then will it become a sorrow for them. Then will they be defeated. And those who ignore warning will be gathered into Gehenna, that God might separate the bad from the good. And the bad will he place one upon another, and heap it all together, and place it in Gehenna. It is they who are the losers. Say thou to those who ignore warning, if they cease, what is past will be forgiven them. But if they return, then the practice of the former peoples has gone before. And fight them until there is no means of denial, and the doctrine is entirely for God. And if they cease, God sees what they do. And if they turn away, then know that God is your protector. Excellent is the protector, and excellent is the helper. And know that anything you take in spoils, to God belongs its fifth, and to the messenger, and to the relatives, and the fatherless, and the poor, and the wayfarer, if you believe in God, and what we sent down upon our servant on the day of division, the day the two hosts met. And God is over all things powerful. When you were on the near bank, and they were on the far bank, and the caravan was lower than you. And had you agreed to meet, you would have failed in the appointment. but that God might conclude a matter that was done, that there might perish he who perished upon clear evidence, and that there might live he who lived upon clear evidence, and God is hearing and knowing. When God showed them in thy dream as few, and had he shown them as many, you would have lost heart and disputed together over the matter. But God delivered. He knows what is in the breasts. And when he showed them, when you met, in your eyes as few, and lessened you in their eyes, that God might conclude a matter that was done, and to God are matters returned. O you who heed warning, when you meet a company, stand firm, and remember God much, that you might be successful. And obey God and his messenger, and dispute not together, lest you lose heart, and your spirit leave you. And be patient. God is with the patient. And be not like those who come forth from their homes boastfully, and to be seen of men, and turn away from the path of God. And God encompasses what they do. And when the Satan made their deeds fair to them, and said, None among men can defeat you this day, when I am at your side, then when the two companies came within sight of one another, he turned on his heels and said, I am quit of you. I see what you see not. I fear God. And God is severe in retribution. When the waverers and those in whose hearts is disease said, Their doctrine has deceived these, but whoso places his trust in God, then God is exalted in might and wise. And if thou couldst see when the angels take those who ignore warning, striking their faces and their backs, it would be a terrible sight indeed. And taste the punishment of the consuming fire, for it is that your hands have sent ahead, and that God is not unjust to his servants. Like the case of the house of Pharaoh and those before them, they denied the proofs of God, so God seized them for their transgressions. God is strong, severe in retribution. Is it not that God changes not the favour he bestows upon a people until they change what is in their souls, and that God is hearing and knowing? Like the case of the house of Pharaoh and those who were before them, they denied the proofs of their Lord. So we destroyed them for their transgressions, and drowned the house of Pharaoh, and all were wrongdoers. The worst of beasts in the sight of God are those who ignore warning, for they do not believe. Those from whom thou takest a covenant, then they break their covenant every time, and they are not in prudent fear. And if thou find them in war, then put thou fear by them into those behind them, that they might take heed. And if thou fear treachery from a people, then cast thou back to them likewise. God loves not the treacherous. And let not those who ignore warning think they have got away. They cannot escape. And prepare for them what you are able of forces and of cavalry, to terrify thereby the enemy of God, and your enemy, and others besides them whom you know not. God knows them. And whatever you spend in the cause of God will be repaid to you in full, and you will not be wronged. And if they incline to peace, then incline thou to it, and place thou thy trust in God. he is the hearing, the knowing. And if they intend to deceive thee, then sufficient for thee is God. He it is that strengthened thee with his help and with the believers. And he united their hearts. Hadst thou spent all that is in the earth, thou couldst not have united their hearts. But God united them. He is exalted in might and wise. O prophet, God is sufficient for thee and those who follow thee among the believers. O prophet, rouse thou the believers to fight. If there be of you 20 patient, they will defeat 200. And if there be of you 100, they will defeat 1,000 of those who ignore warning, because they are people who understand not. Now has God lightened for you, and he knows there is weakness in you. So if there be of you 100 patient, they will defeat 200. And if there be of you 1,000, they will defeat 2,000 by the leave of God. And God is with the patient. It is not for a prophet to have captives until he has battled strenuously in the land. You desire the goods of the world, and God desires the hereafter. And God is exalted in might and wise. Had it not been for a writ from God which had gone before, a great punishment would have touched you for what you took. So eat of what you took in spoils as lawful and good, and be in prudent fear of God. God is forgiving and merciful. O prophet, say thou to those in your hands of the captives, if God knows any good in your hearts, he will give you better than what has been taken from you, and will forgive you. And God is forgiving and merciful. And if they wish to betray thee, then they have betrayed God before, but he placed them in subjection, and God is knowing and wise. Those who heeded warning and emigrated, and strove with their property and their lives in the cause of God, and those who gave shelter and helped, those are allies one of another. And those who heed warning but have not emigrated, you are not required to protect them from anything until they emigrate. And if they seek help from you within the doctrine, you are required to help, save against a people between whom and you is an agreement, and God sees what you do. And those who ignore warning are allies of one another. Save you do it, there will be means of denial in the land, and great corruption. And those who heed warning and emigrate, and strive in the cause of God, and those who give shelter and help, it is they who are the believers in truth. They have forgiveness and a noble provision. And those who heed warning thereafter and emigrate and strive beside you, those are of you. But those of kinship are closer to one another in the writ of God. God knows all things.